Hi, this is another Ask Augustin. Today I'm going to talk about posture. I've actually gotten a lot of questions about that recently, and I wanted to talk a little bit about posture and how I arrived at my posture and all the different adjustments I've made over the years, because it is actually something I've worked on a lot. So I first started playing the violin without a shoulder rest and without anything, and that worked really well for me when I was growing up. I had a pretty short neck, but at some point I grew a lot. My neck got a lot longer, and by the time I became an adult, I was really playing a lot like this. Sometimes raising my left shoulder a little bit, but mostly coming down with my whole body, kind of turning in on myself. It's very bad for the sound for two reasons. The first one is that a lot of my shoulder is touching the instrument and is kind of muting it noticeably softer, and also because I'm leaning down so much, which is not so great for the projection, because it means that I'm not using the weight of the bow as well. At some point when I was 21, I started using cushions underneath my shirt. I had seen some violinists do it, Pinker Zuckerman, Isaac Stern, Cholyang Lin. There are a lot of violinists who I noticed were using cushions underneath their shirts, and I tried it, and what I liked about it was that it felt basically, for my hands, it felt the same as not using a shoulder rest. It felt like what I was used to, because at the time, whenever I tried shoulder rests, it was not so comfortable for me. So this worked really well for me. It basically positions the violin a little bit higher, and I don't have to bend down as much. I also became more aware on what I was doing with my feet. As a general, I mean, this is a little bit different for everyone, but as a general thing, I think it's best to either stand with your feet kind of a little bit apart and with equal weight on both, or to have the weight on the right foot. What a lot of this talk about posture is all about is that we want to be playing the violin until we're very old, and it's going to be tricky if our posture is very hard on our body. We basically want the default posture in which we are when we play the violin to be quite relaxed and as healthy as possible. So a lot of the adjustments that I've made over the last 10 years, even after I started using the cushion, were all about being a little bit more upright and in a more normal position, not having the head too much this way, basically trying to be in a relatively normal, healthy way, so that even after a lot of playing, my fingers might get tired, my arm might get tired, but I'm not going to feel like neck pain. Neck and back pain are some of the worst things to deal with when they become chronic, and they do have a lot to do with posture. And one of the benefits is that I'm able to hear much clearer what's going on. I can hear also other instruments I'm playing with better, and I have just in general better control and much better control over my sound, because I can use the weight of my bow more efficiently. I've gotten a lot of questions about shoulder rest, no shoulder rest. These are choices that are very personal, and it depends a little bit. It depends very much on how you first learned to play the violin. It is quite hard to play without a shoulder rest if that's what you've always been used to, is playing with a shoulder rest. So to all the people who play with shoulder rests but are having some physical problems and tensions resulting from that, I would encourage them to check out all the different types of shoulder rests that there are, because there are many that are specifically optimized in order to reduce tension or to improve the sound of the instrument. There are a lot of different shoulder rests, and some are much better than others. So there's a whole world of that out there. When you learn to play without a shoulder rest, then it's fairly easy to play with one, but I've always found it to be less comfortable, because with a shoulder rest you tend to be almost locked in one position for the whole performance, and then are actually slightly more likely to have some tensions than when you don't use a shoulder rest the violin is a bit more flexible, and because of the flexibility, there are ways while you play, even for a long time, to kind of relax and relieve tension because you're a little bit more in motion. The thing that is more difficult about playing without a shoulder rest is that when you shift down, you can have the feeling that the violin is escaping from you. So one thing that's very hard is to get to the point where you feel like you really have a very secure hold of the violin without any effort, that your chin is holding the violin securely, so that even if you shift down, it doesn't change anything. These days I don't really hold the violin very much with my left hand. Sometimes I sustain it a little bit, but most of it happens here, and that's where the cushion has really helped me. Posture is very important because the positions in which we are when we play the violin is quite unnatural for the body. It's very kind of one-sided, and everything about playing the violin is kind of it's actually kind of strange when you think about it. You become aware just how strange it is if you try to play the other way. If you try to to use your right hand as your left hand and hold the violin over there, and you suddenly realize that's impossible. How do I even do it this way? It's because when you're 4 or 5 years old and do it your whole life, then your body gets used to this thing. It could never do it the other way around. The thing about tension is that it's perfectly fine to have some tension when you play sometimes, but you don't want to be tense all the time. That's the main key. So if there are moments when you're a little bit tense, but then you relax again, that's perfectly fine. And there are many great violinists who at times become quite tense. That's okay. Where you run into issues is if the tension persists all the time when you're playing, then it can lead to injuries. If you're doing completely fine physically, that's the best time to think about posture, because once something starts hurting, it's a little bit, it's already a difficult situation, and can be then hard to suddenly switch gears. For children that are still growing, you can't really find the ideal posture, because as we grow up, everything changes over and over. You basically have to keep making adjustments. So the posture is really something that you find the right posture for you when you are an adult, when you are basically the size you're going to be. Everybody's body is a little bit different, as I explained in one of the previous episodes. Some people have longer arms, shorter arms, and different lengths of necks, and so all of those things factor into it. You basically have to figure out with the way that your body is built what is going to be the right posture, and that might mean actually not using a shoulder rest. That might mean using a shoulder rest. Chin rests can also help. There's some chin rests that are very, very tall that can help people with long necks, it's a little bit of experimentation that we have to do, but it's very important. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next time.